Oh no. Oh no. Is it time? Is it time? Are we doing this? Is this what's happening? Is this what's happening, you guys? That's what we're doing. Welcome to the world of great British Railways. Oh no. So, many people question why I hate British Rail so much, and I don't. I hate 1960s British Rail. These are two very different things. Because, yeah, they made a lot of mistakes in the early days, but they got their act together. And by the end of it, I would argue they probably shouldn't have been privatized at all. I think they should have been left alone. It only became a running joke on this channel because, frankly, they had a monopoly on really bad diesels. That was kind of the thing. And when I was doing worst trains ever on the regular, it just always seemed to show up. So it made sense to make a joke out of it. But the truth is that, again, by the 70s and the 80s, they were doing pretty well, even innovating, giving us things like the HST. I mean, you know, they were doing okay. But no, that's not what Parliament decided to do. That was silly. Don't let it go. We gotta fix this. And by fix it, they were gonna re-privatize everything. The process of doing that was started in 1994 by the Major government, and the infrastructure would be therefore privately owned and operated by Railtrack between 1994 until 2002. However, that didn't go well at all. By 2002, Railtrack was suffering heavy financial losses. It was a disaster. So they renationalized it again and transferred everything to Network Rail. But they didn't renationalize it in the same way. When British Rail was in control, they had control of basically everything. But Network Rail handled it a bit differently. The services were still run by private companies through effectively a franchise system. The companies were referred to as Train Operating Companies, or TOCs, and included organizations like First Group and Arriva. There was more of a fallback with this method because the Department of Transport reserved the right to take control of services in case of poor performance or financial troubles. But for the most part, things were still somewhat private, but also not. It was kind of a weird hybrid of nationalized and not nationalized. But this resulted in much confusion and delay because now you had a whole bunch of different companies offering different services, sometimes the same service, but then people had to transfer between different operators and get different tickets, and it just made things a lot more difficult for passengers. It again would have been better if they had just, made everything nationalized again, but they didn't do that completely. They only went halfway with it. But in 2018, the Johnson government began looking into reviewing the rail system, and in a report published in 2021, known as the Williams-Shapps Rail Review, it was recommended that they form a new publicly owned organization called Great British Railways. This version of Great British Railways would have a concession model with passenger service contracts, or PSCs, awarded to privately owned operators, but with Great British Railways setting the fares and timetabling. So it was still a private franchise sort of model, but also not. But this version of Great British Railways never really got off the ground. In October of 2022, the Transport Secretary at the time, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, announced that the transport bill, which was supposed to set up Great British Railways, wasn't going ahead. Then the following year, her replacement, Transport Secretary Mark Harper, proceeded to reaffirm that the government was still committed to Great British Railways and further rail reform. In the 2023 King's Speech, it was announced that there was progression of a draft of the rail reform bill, which would enable the establishment of Great British Railways, but it wasn't actually timetabled. They didn't make any promises regarding when it would actually happen, and then it just didn't kind of happen at all. By May of 2024, the Public Accounts Committee reported that the DFT, the Department for Transport, had achieved very little on rail reform and weren't really doing anything, and they weren't helping at all. So this, it was a mess. It was a mess. But just prior to the 2024 general election, the Labour Party would reveal that they had their own plan for rail reform, and were using the same Great British Railways name. This would include renationalizing passenger services while preserving the role of open access operators. The Labour Party would win that election, coming to power under the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. And they proceeded to keep their promise when it came to making Great British Railways actually happen, at least their version of it. The rail franchises would come under public ownership as their contracts expired, and Great British Railways would come into being as a result of two different bills. The first being the Passenger Railway Services Bill and the Railways Bill, the former of which was passed in November of 2024, which resulted on May 25th, 2025, in the Southwestern Railway coming under public ownership, with some trains even receiving a new paint job, with Great British Railways coming soon on the side. They're coming. They're coming soon! The British are coming! The British are coming, you guys! The intention here is to take over basically all the passenger service and allow the freight to be handled somewhat privately. Based off of what I've been able to ascertain, it seems like it's going to be a lot like Amtrak. Like over here in America. Amtrak is our nationalized railway system, but they only handle long-distance passenger services. There are some smaller passenger services that handle more regional things, like Metra and New Jersey Transit, but Amtrak's the big federal one. It sounds like Great British Railways is going to be a bit like that, but let freight operators still maintain some level of privatized ownership, which does make some sense. They're not going to be completely like the original British Rail, but they're going to be a lot closer than anything has been for a while. And as part of the methodology for, moving into this sort of plan, prior to the last bill becoming law, the leaders of both Network Rail and the Department for Transportation would start working together as what they called Shadow British Railways. Really? That's what you called it? Why would you be so sinister about this? The jokes write themselves. They dwell in the shadows, with their terrible diesels and their beaching cuts, waiting to strike, to return the horror. Why? But despite the sinister name, it was actually a smart move to do this. Basically, they'd start working as Great British Railways before it was officially established as a shadow cabal, whatever. It's just gotta make it weird. And it does seem like this plan is going forward. And when it comes to my personal opinion on that, well, personally, I really hope it does go smoothly. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I don't want everything to go great on this, because that would affect the regular British public, many of whom follow my videos and are watching now. I would love it if I could make no further jokes about this, if everything went perfectly and the trains operated better, more efficiently, and made the public happier. That would be awesome to say. So, I wish them the best of luck with this. I genuinely hope Great British Railways is great. But if they're not... I'll be the first to say something about it. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.